friends and enemies, welcome back to CBP number 211. We are exactly 2 weeks away from a Canadian federal election and a CBP election night special that's really taking shape. I don't know if you noticed, but Francis committed, Mark Jeftovic committed. We're looking for maybe one or two more. I think Boomer's thrown his name in the ring. Looking to be a very promising evening, starting at 8 o'clock, going until the polls close and Mark Carney is coronated the new leader of this country.
You think that's going to happen?
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I was talking to my mother-in-law earlier. She's over right now just watching my daughter. And I don't trust the polling, obviously, but I just also don't trust anyone who thinks it's like a done deal going either way. I just don't think I think it's very much in flux still. Where do you come down?
I've said it last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it's going to be a Poilievre majority still, regardless of what I see in the polls or polling market. Just from what I see with boots on the ground, well, the closest I can see with boots on the ground, somebody else taking photos, because obviously I don't leave the basement. There seems to be a lot more people attending the Poilievre campaign rallies than they are the Carney rallies. Now, that may not be truly reflective of what's going to happen on election day, but I'm just going to go with that. Could be proven wrong, but I still say it's going to be a conservative majority. And that's going on a limb, right?
Yeah,
I'm not talking minority.
I know that is, but the polls are kind of firming up a little bit in favor of the conservatives these days compared to where they were last week. I don't know. There's all kinds of different reasons to think that the polling is off. Obviously, there's like the certain party voter. So there's a better way to describe that. But the people who already know who they're going to vote for sure. And then the people who, if the election was today, who would you pick? And it's a different question. And pollsters, they get data different ways as well. There's a tweet thread about this guy Polling Canada or whatever, who's a former NDP candidate, tells everything you need to know about the guy. But one of the ways he gets his data is by asking the campaign to ask questions at the door. So the campaigns are asking some of the questions for pollsters. That's not proper data collection. I'm not an expert in that field, but I know that that's not what you call a fair sample. So I don't know, man. I think that in either case, the election night special is going to be really good here. Like I said, some high quality people, great thinkers, and it's going to be a fun night regardless. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens and the response from Canadians, right? Debates, obviously, this week, Wednesday and Thursday. I tweeted out today a bit about that, but we'll get into some of that maybe. Let's talk about the sponsors first here. EasyDNS is the best place for you to register a domain. Mark is a friendly neighborhood registrar. We've been working with him for the better part of 3 years now. Can you believe it, Len? It's been
That's a long time.
It's been that long, yeah. And we've used Mark's services for a number of things, obviously for the website, for the show. We use him for our bull referral code. We've used him for the blog on the website that I hastily update every week, including today. If you haven't gone to look at it, you should go check that out. And you can use Mark too. It's a great service. EasyDNS is the best place, like I said, for you to do any of this website stuff. And there's a lot of great side, adjacent features that you can take advantage of. One is domain share for a little extra on the top. It is best in silo security. And we say this with confidence. One, because we do the Access of Easy podcast for EasyDNS and talk every week about ways that if these companies, these, industries had domain share as part of their registrar suite of services, they wouldn't be getting owned by, black hat hacking groups with poorly thought out nicknames. On top of that, Len, we talk all the time about the Bitcoin enthusiast package over there. Tons of stuff for the virtual private server enjoyer. You can do Bitcoin nodes, Nostr relays, BTC Pay servers, anything you want, man. Mark will either be able to help you himself or point you in the right direction on the EasyDNS suite of services. So go there, use the code CBP Media, get 50% off your first round of buys. Can't beat it. Who's the second sponsor?
Well, it's Bull Bitcoin, but I don't want to overlook just something with the first sponsor. People in the know, people that are in the industry that have their thumbs on the pulse of the industry, they're pointing people to EasyDNS. Yeah. And I met somebody, Sean, this past weekend, and he's in the IT field, and he recommends his customers use EasyDNS. And if he's doing that, he's just a regular guy. Look, you should be doing that too. EasyDNS is the way to go. But Bull Bitcoin, can't overlook them, and had a good time chatting with them this past weekend. It was always good to chat with the folks over there. Look, good time to buy Bitcoin. Obviously, good time to sell Bitcoin. Probably not, but you could still do that with bull Bitcoin. 85,000. I just missed it in my fucking block. It was like 85,000 or 84. It was pretty darn. What are you gonna do? You're gonna buy Bitcoin on chain, Lightning. That's the way to go. On chain is still really, really cheap. You have no excuse. Just buy your on chain and keep buying it. But also, don't overlook Lightning. Eventually, we're gonna need that when the fees are high, and this will come sometime in the future when I do not know. But either way, you have that with bull Bitcoin. You can buy and sell on Lightning as well. There's a couple other things you could do with the bill service. Talked to somebody this past weekend who was using it, and this guy was paying his bills with his Bitcoin using bull Bitcoin to facilitate that. Really cool stuff. Also with bull Bitcoin, you can buy gift cards with your Bitcoin, and you can spend that in the real world, because really you can't spend your Bitcoin right now directly in merchants. Not many merchants in Canada accept Bitcoin direct. So you have to do indirectly by buying these gift cards. Check them out. If you aren't a bull Bitcoin user yet, use our code below or referral link. If you do that, $21 added to your account once you fund the necessary account. I think it's you get to put a couple $100 or something. I forget what. Either way, you get 20. Yeah. So it's not too bad. So yeah.
Rock solid. I love that. Housekeeping then boost. Last week, Coin Icarus, highly regarded show, not in the meme sense, but in the actual sort of held in high regard sense. We talked a lot about Bitcoin content, some Simply Bitcoin stuff, the way that everything is fucking clickbait now. And, everyone's on this infomercial model where they're always making content but never saying anything. Len, I think that's a great way to describe it. I'm glad you said that to me one day. This week, unhypnotized BTC Heather will be on the show. Heather is like I said before, she's sort of beyond my expertise in basically every way. I'm not into hypnosis, nor am I into matters of the, the mind and the id, let's say. But she is, and she's someone who's into Bitcoin and talks a lot about everything from, breaking free of the shackles of your mind to, what's another example? Dating a Bitcoiner, dating as a Bitcoiner. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to talking with her. She comes highly recommended by a friend of the show, Dave Bradley. And then this Friday, Len, I think live at 12 o'clock on Good Friday, I'm going to be on Pleb Underground. So that's going to be fun. Phil's invited me. I'm happy to make my debut. And so I invite you guys to check that out. Take some time off from abstaining from meat and come listen to some Bitcoin content over on Phil's channel. I see in the chat, Speakeasy Tapas Lounge. Yeah, we accept Bitcoin as a means of payment. There's a number of places that do, which is outstanding.
That's in Ottawa. I'm looking at it right now. 55 York Street, giving you a plug. Check them out.
That's free on the house. Definitely go check them out. But anyway, yeah, for housekeeping, Len, I think that's it. Next week, are you doing the interview next week? I think you are, right?
I think to next 2 weeks. I have no idea. You know what?
I'm kind of look.
We're fighting for space. You and I. It looks like.
Yeah.
This is behind the scenes. You should see the comments going on. He wants time. I want time. There's not enough of it going around.
I did ask Len to move one interview for me. I think next week is Len. Len is talking to a buddy of ours, Tuan, and then the week after that, on the 30th, I'll be talking to Millennial Moron. Who you guys know for sure from Twitter and TikTok. Very popular guy, talks about a lot of stuff, real estate, finance related, obviously Canadian as well, which is outstanding. So yeah, we got a lot of good shows coming up, and they're going to keep coming on CBP.
Boosts?
I'm ready.
Only 3, because we're having some still difficult. I got to email Oscar because somebody didn't note that they did a boost for us, a boostagram, but it didn't show up on my thing. So I still got to reach out to Oscar. Either way, the 3 that came up, wartime, first 333 sats. And it's basically a firecracker with a fireball. That's it.
It's like
wartime
to decipher hieroglyphs in this section of the show.
He does this a lot, and I love wartime for this. He does another 333 sats, and his hands clapping. And each of the 2 were for 2 different episodes we released. It was, I think, the episode that you released on Monday, and then one on Tuesday, and then Wednesday. So the Bitcoin stories, then the notable / we can't say the word much anymore. Other type of stories. Ma Talks 123 500 sats. He said, I would love to go to a Bitcoin meetup to share and learn. Would prefer the West End of the GTA. My wife is also sick of hearing about Bitcoin. Join the club. Joey, there may be time we should do some sort of get together in the Western half. Maybe we should just go to a park and do it. You know what I mean?
I would not do it at a park. I
Why
do
not?
Want to do it. I think if we do it, we will do it at It's going to either be the Collins or Thirsty Cactus in Dundas is my preference, because that's close to my house, number one, but also because they're both pretty big and could handle 30, 40 people if we decided to do it.
I like the park. Just show up and just invade it, and that's that, and just keep going.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But if there's interest in that, like, yeah, definitely, I don't know, tell us in a boost or tell me on Twitter, because I do want to do it. And Tom and Nick always give me a hard time about not doing it, and they think we should go on a cross-country tour. Maybe.
Cross-country tour?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of time these days, but it'd be cool. You know, we maybe get a bus. Can we buy the NDP bus? They'll be looking to raise some cash at the end of this election, right?
Do they own that, or they're renting that? So it makes a huge difference. I'm guessing they're renting it. Whatever. I'm not. I'm not going to do a cross country tour. It's not going to happen this time.
No.
And by the time I'm ready, who knows?
You'll be doing a cross world tour. I'll have to come meet you.
I think so.
Yeah.
I really think so. Yeah. Anyways,
where should we go first here? That's all the boost. It's all the housekeeping. Only 10 minutes in. That's good. That's about 5 minutes more for Bitcoin stories than we usually have. So let's hop to it.
Let's talk about right away shitty wallets like Atomic and Exodus. Those two are not open source. Atomic is totally not open source. It's totally closed. And Exodus at least has some parts to it that is open source. Either way, they're both shitty in multiple reasons. One reason, I'm going to explain why they're shitty, and why I like alternatives like Sparrow and soon to be Cove. I haven't yet tried it out because it's not yet available for Android, and hopefully it will be available for Linux in not too distant future. But either way, long story short, the two programs I mentioned, I'm talking Atomic Wallet and Exodus, they have been infected with malware. And what happens is when you use it and you try to send Bitcoin, it swaps out the send address to one that belongs to a malicious actor. So they're the ones that get the Bitcoin in the end. And this is really why I like, and you should all like, something like Sparrow and Cold Card, because when you use the Cold Card to send out Bitcoin, there's a sanity check before you do the partially signed Bitcoin transaction. It shows you on the screen where it's going to, so you can confirm that it's the legitimate address. And then you sign it, and then you move the SD card over. At least that's the way I do it. So I'm old school. And then once I open my Sparrow, I put in the SD card, loaded up. Again, I confirm the address where it's going to. That's the final sanity check. This gives you an opportunity to make sure that it's going to the right place. There is no interception here. I'm using a clean service. It's totally clean. That's the way to do it. So this is all the reason why you should all not fuck around and find out. When you start using stuff like Atomic Wallet, Exodus, I'm not going to say you are going to get rugged, but the potential's there, right? It's just bullshit. Like, so stay away from that. I recommend using a clean computer, something that shitty works just fine to run Sparrow, just Sparrow. Just run that, and it limits what bad could happen to you. You don't have to have that computer always hooked up to the internet. In fact, you can just turn it on as you need Sparrow, but this is the way to go. This is more of a call to action for people out there. Stay away from the shitty wallets. They are going to hurt you in the end.
Don't forget, too, that Atomic was hacked in 2023 and still hasn't really provided any updates on what the cause of that hack was or the root of that hack was. Like, that's a sin in cybersecurity, and even a greater sin in the digital cash realm here in Bitcoin. I really have a hard time understanding why people aren't using Sparrow. The only thing people don't like about Sparrow, and actually Dave and I talked about this a little bit, the UI thing, except I think we're talking about MVK's products, but Sparrow's in the same boat. Sparrow is very bare bones, looks like something out of Windows, XP era, maybe a little after that, Windows 2000 NT era, something that vintage. And it's a little bit intimidating because there are a lot of features, and it's something you can kind of get carried away with, and it doesn't look as clean as Blue Wallet or Green Wallet, but it is fully functioned. And the other thing that I think it has going for it, and some people may disagree with this, but it's got a very small dev team. So yeah, that means that updates don't come as large as they may otherwise come, or as quickly as they may otherwise come, but you also don't have problems with multiple people with their hands in the pie working on software and then leaving you exposed basically to attacks like this. This particular attack, a PDF to Office package from some other bit of software and injects malicious code into those two wallets. Like, that's something that took time to figure out probably. And I don't really think that this is excusable because, like I said, 2023 you had a hack. Now 2025 you have a hack. I can't imagine you'd still be using these products. And like you said, that sanity check that you get when you're sending on Sparrow, huge. But also then, even back in like 2017, it was always best practice to check the last 7, 8, numerical digits of the wallet you were trying to send to, and the wallet that shows up on your device or your software, right? And so you have to really have both those addresses handy. The one that you want to send to, and it's in a separate window, the one that the wallet software wants to send to. And you have to be comparing them. I still do that today when I'm sending transactions. Doesn't everybody do that? Like I always double check the addresses.
I agree, but still, I imagine that this is not the case, and people are getting owned in the fact. I don't know if this malware masks it. It may appear it's going to the right address, and behind the scenes, it's changing it to a malicious actor. This I don't know, but come on, there's enough people out there that are just clicking stuff quickly, and they don't care. And I don't think a lot of people are checking it. Maybe the majority are, but there's going to be a few people that aren't checking to make sure the address is correct. With Bitcoin, the onus is on you. There's nobody that's going to make you whole again. You fuck up, you fuck up.
Yeah.
So that's why it's imperative to make sure you double, triple check. If you take extra time, no fucking problem. This is your money. If you lose it, it's not going to come back to you. Nobody's going to help you. So that's why I like Bitcoin, because you are ultimately responsible. This is what you need, responsibility.
Yeah, good comments in the chat. You are the bank from Mix, and then Boomer, obviously stay away from shitcoins and really stay away from shitcoin wallets. That's a good point. I just want to note that Speakeasy Tapas Lounge also saying complimentary cocktail to any CBP listeners who pay with Bitcoin. So there you go. If you're in the Ottawa
road trip,
area,
Joey, let's go for a drive.
Yeah, I'll get in the car right now. I'll see you in 10 minutes, and then we'll head down. We should be there by midnight.
You know what? And funny enough, just going into the weeds here, I've done day trips to Ottawa to watch the Leafs a few times.
Really?
Yeah, and I've done that and gone to work the next day, come back, and this is before we had the 50 over, you lose your car laws here in Ontario.
Oh boy, yeah.
Yeah, so my old car, I took it to Ottawa many, many times, and I made some record times.
I'm sure. Anyway,
Bull Bitcoin.
Stay away from these wallets. Bull Bitcoin, yeah, go.
They expanded to Mexico. I'm not sure if you saw this one. So they are now over there. You're able to convert your Mexican pesos into the hardest asset known to man. And they recently expanded also to Costa Rica. And then shortly thereafter, they launched in France and then 26 other European countries. And now they're in Mexico. So the people in Mexico can now join a mission just like you and I are part of. So not sure if people out there listening to us are in Mexico. But if you are, Bull Bitcoin is there to cover you. So check them out. And you're good to go.
I think we have some Mexican listeners. It's hard for me. Like when we were talking about Bull Bitcoin early on, they were the best place for Canadians to buy and sell Bitcoin. And they still are the best place for Canadians to buy and sell Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin Well. It's not ShakePay. Okay, you're never going to hear the guys at Bull Bitcoin talking about freedom money and freedom technology about anything besides Bitcoin. And these guys now, Len, are the best place in Europe and the best place in Mexico and the best place in Canada. And, if you look at Francis's page, he's talking about some other expansion targets as well.
Did he mention any names?
He didn't. No, he didn't. But even if you talk to him, he'll tell you that he's got a couple of places in mind. It's amazing. This is what you can achieve if you have a small-ish, focused team that's not worried about nonsense day to day, that's not worried about share price, that's not worried about Ethereum, that's not worried about anything except how do we get Bitcoin in the hands of more people, whether it's helping people sell their house for Bitcoin, move to another jurisdiction with Bitcoin. Like these are all services that they offer, officially or unofficially. And, that people go to these guys for good reason. They the mission thing that they have where, they'll only give you a referral code if they vet
you got to
you
pass
first.
a certain threshold.
Like,
you have to be,
it's like a purity test almost, but hey,
yes.
It works. If you go to the mission Telegram chat, it's pretty lit. It's a lot of good Bitcoiners talking about a lot of things that are Bitcoin and Bitcoin adjacent, a lot of freedom talk in there. And that's really what Bitcoin's about. And to be able to get it to all these other countries is amazing. Francis has said in the past, on this show, and I think other shows as well, that the U.S. is not in the cards. But everywhere else, I get the feeling is fair game.
That's too bad, because that would have then covered the whole North American sphere, right?
It's just because there's too many state by state regulators, right? It's a very, very difficult market to break into on the financial product side, I would guess. But that's just my guess.
Right? Just the thought of getting, it's so lucrative given how much money is sloshing around over there compared to other countries. So
your voice sounds so good in that mic. So deep.
Does it?
It's way deeper. Yeah, it's good. A little punch in there. I like that.
Is it sending blood to the wrong places?
What's next?
We'll talk about that in a little while. Pierre Rochard, right?
Friend of the show.
Pierre. Long resume. This guy co-founded the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute. He was part of Riot and left there not too long ago. Also part of Kraken, BitPay. Sorry. This past week, he spun up a new company called the Bitcoin Bond Company. And it's to offer Bitcoin-backed structured products to traditional credit investors. And their goal, they try to acquire $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin over the next 21 years. I assume this is going to be the equivalent of of 1 trillion in 21 years, not $1 trillion today, because that's quite a feat if you could try to get 1 trillion worth of Bitcoin in today's value. But either way, he says he's going to be targeting institutional investors with this that were scared of Bitcoin's volatility, but want credit-like returns. And also, this part I like, he's going to be providing education to these investors who have knowledge of bonds backed by real estate or corporate debt. So he's going to show them something that's a little bit different. So of note, the Bitcoin that he plans to hold on is going to be held by a third party. They're not going to self-manage the Bitcoin.
Okay, so let me ask something. But like we talked about this before, and I always say that there just isn't a good way legally to do this custody thing for some of these products. And you say, well, we got to break down the walls, blah, blah, blah. Saylor couldn't do it. He may not have been the best guy. Pierre is for sure the best guy. His wife is an accountant, CFA or whatever. He's worked with Kraken, worked with a number of different companies, as you mentioned. Like, if he couldn't do it, are you willing to at least move a little bit from your position that this might not be feasible for the time being?
There are companies that already do it, large companies that already do it. Why can't we follow suit?
What large companies are doing it?
Tesla. I have done all the research I have done with Tesla. I have not found any information show that they have a third party custodying their Bitcoin.
They are for sure using a third party.
Find it for me and prove me wrong, because I have not found it. So based off that, this is a very large company, heavily traded, and to the best of my knowledge, again, prove me wrong, they're holding their own corn. So if they could do this, why can't anybody else do this? And so I'm not going to use them as the shine of everything, but for this, they're doing it. So it's not like, companies don't do this. Companies are publicly traded. This is one of the largest companies in the fucking world that's doing this. SpaceX is not publicly traded. No. So that's they may be holding on to it. That's fine and dandy. But the one that I want to see is a publicly traded company that's fucking large that does this. Tesla checks those boxes, right? So can't find it, right? Like I've dug as far as I could, and I couldn't find shit. So if Pierre's not doing it, I'd like to know why Pierre's not doing it. Because others are doing it.
Maybe I'll just invite him on the show or something. Yeah, see if he wants to come on, talk about it.
I'd love to know the answer to that.
Yeah, I like the idea anyway. Pierre is a guy who's like been jumping from company to company for the last minimum 5 or 6 years, and he's an important voice in the Bitcoin space. Not just on the professional side, though. Obviously, he does wear a suit better than most Bitcoiners, and I'm not afraid to say that. He also is one of the most important voices in the podcast space. Noted is like an unbelievable, legendary OG podcast from the early era of Bitcoin podcasts with Michael Goldstein, Bitstein, and Pierre. Now they're running a podcast called The Reorg. I don't know if you've heard that one, Lem, where they review old stuff that the Nakamoto Institute has published and sort of talk about, how those ideas and theses developed over time and where they got stuff wrong and where they got stuff right. It's a great show. And Pierre is like legendary Bitcoiner. He came on this show first time we asked him and was a fantastic guest. I was still kind of finding my footing as an interviewer back then. It was a few years ago now. And I really thought that he provided a lot of thoughtful answers to questions that maybe weren't fully fleshed out. And he's just a guy who gets it. He's an outstanding Bitcoin communicator. as people say. And he's in my top 5 sort of voices in Bitcoin, I think. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this company does. He's obviously been thinking about this for some time, and I wish him all the best. I wish him all the best. By the way, Tesla's Bitcoin held in custody by Coinbase Prime. So
show me where does this? Because I've checked.
I just used AI and searched, and it just says
give me some
recent
legitimate
analysis indicates that Tesla's Bitcoin is held in custody at Coinbase Prime. It's from Forbes. It's from Forbes.
Okay, Forbes. That's a very reputable place.
Or FX Street or Forbes. That's all I got.
FX Street is probably a little bit better, but everything I've checked, nada. So until I see, and I looked at everything and I could not find a single fucking thing. Either way, this is looking like it's another way. I'm talking about Pierre's initiative here to try to get as much, like, wring as much money out of Bitcoin as possible, right? Like offering a fiat-like type offering. It's almost in a way. Do you remember we were talking about Adam Back?
Yeah.
And his initiative, like, it's almost like this is. I think you pointed out this is the way things are probably going to be moving. There's no way to really monetize Bitcoin any further than what we have right now. So they have to go to some other thing, for better or for worse. I mean, whatever. I kind of wish we had stuff that's more Bitcoin related. I mean, this is Bitcoin related, but it's still very much fiat. So
I think this is I'm more and more asking questions about, like, are things net positive or net negative, right? Are they 1 or 0 on this sort of spectrum of good or bad for Bitcoin? This is a 1. I think it's a 1. And you can imagine, we have to speculate sometimes about, is owning Coinbase stock a top of the funnel moment? Is owning the Bitcoin ETF IBIT a top of the funnel moment? And I think the biggest issue is that it's hard to say for sure, because you just don't know who people are talking to when they talk to Fidelity or when they talk to, Coinbase support or whatever. What are those people talking about when it comes to Bitcoin? But I know what Pierre is going to be talking about when it comes to Bitcoin and when these people ask him about Bitcoin. And I'm confident that this is going to be a really strong top of funnel for a lot of institutional players if he's successful. And so I want him to be successful. I think this is nice.
And of those, how many are going to look at Bitcoin and say, "Oh, this is something I'm going to buy and hold"? I mean,
I think a lot. If Pierre gets you in a room, the likelihood that you leave that room and don't have Bitcoin on your mind and don't want to buy some, it's got to be among the lowest possible.
I think what he's trying to target is people that are just looking for a different type of yield, a different type of, like, in putting your money on something and getting something more out of return, and people that are bond related and shit like that. And those people are they going to end up becoming hard asset Bitcoin enthusiasts? I
don't know.
I secure my own keys, shit like that.
I mean, if they made it to the bond thing, then presumably they get the value.
Like,
prop,
what?
And Pierre
I kind of look at
over
this.
the top. Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of similar to what, like, Sailor's selling with his
Strike
what's
or
that?
Whatever.
So, yes,
that's the one. What is it?
Strike. That's whatever the fuck it is. It's kind of like that, right? Like, for people who are buying that, like, why are they buying it? Are they, "Oh, I'm a fucking Bitcoiner, I want to hold my own keys," or "I just want to get some 8% yield on," I think it's the 8% crowd.
I don't know.
More than anything.
The 8%ers. We gotta find and eliminate the 8%ers ASAP.
Yeah, well, they want to ensure that they're beating inflation at 7.5%. So that 0.5% that they're getting, they're laughing. Right?
That's a valid. I think that is a valid point, and I think these guys are really thinking about this more and more. So I don't know. Like, I love Pierre, love the idea. I am always skeptical of these things working long term, because it's always a tricky thing to play against the fiat kings and queens, right? They're always changing the rules, and this is the thing about these financial tools, that you're exposed to those rules more than you are if you just hold the core asset. And I think people are going to slowly start to realize that, if they haven't already. I think a lot of people have, but there's still a number of people who haven't, and I think they're going to.
And we'll go on a little bit of a tangent here. In the past week and change, the price of Bitcoin and the markets as a whole, there was a lot of volatility, right? And with respect to that, and I don't want to know how much Bitcoin you have or how much equities you have, but did you really care? Did you lose any sleep?
No.
Was it just
the only time I really paid attention to the price with intent was when I was looking to make a buy.
Okay.
And like, but like, no, do I care about the price on the downside? No,
Yeah.
I don't.
See,
There is a number where I would care, I'm sure, but it's not anywhere near where it is now.
I don't even know what that number would be for me, to be honest, to care. I would care if I was in a different state. If I was heavily into stocks, if I was heavily into bonds, and I was a retiree, I had very little to no exposure to Bitcoin. I would be sweating it out almost when I see the stock market going the way it is. But given where I am in life, I'm a little bit older, but I have a fair decent amount of exposure to corn. I could care less what happens to everything, even the price of Bitcoin. If it goes down, great. I mean, like you say, it's almost a buying opportunity. But I know it's going to go back up. It's just my mentality has changed quite a bit. And what happens, it happens. I don't really care. I can't sweat it because I can't change it. But one thing I can change is how much Bitcoin I'm going to have tomorrow. And that's really what I want to have. It's more of that tomorrow than anything else. So I just wanted to just mention that. Coinbase, though, let's talk about their ideas of monetizing shit.
My favorite stock. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you still have it? You're still have you sold?
I have.
Do you want to disclose?
I have Coinbase stock still. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a frequent buyer of Coinbase stock, but I have Coinbase stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about, like, I'm disclosing my financial plans on this show because you keep asking me about that. Well, it's as vague as possible. Like, it's always the same, right? Like I don't use my TFSA nearly as much as I used to, but I am still a dollar cost average enjoyer on the equity side, though not as much as I used to be.
Still, it's been years since I added to my TFSA.
Yeah. You've been steadfast.
Fuck them. And what Coinbase is trying to do, though, they're trying to monetize on-chain advertising. On-chain advertising, Joey.
Yeah.
Right? So back in January, they bought up a company called Spindle, Spindl, and they were an on-chain ads and attribution platform. So they gobbled them up and got all the goodies that come along with it. And hopefully this on-chain advertising stuff they focus mainly or in totality on the shitcoin networks, and they don't migrate over to the Bitcoin network. But we saw what happened when people start spamming Bitcoin, the fees go up, and some people weren't happy. I'm going to raise my hand. And so, right, it looks like they're going to spam the networks with trash. And, they're looking to hire a senior counsel product for ad tech. And this is specifically to do with that. It's AKA a spam specialist. So if you are a spam specialist, you may want to check them out and submit your resume. They say they're probably going to integrate this into the Coinbase wallet to take advantage of advertising. And all the more reason why people should use something like Sparrow, right? Like, why would you use anything else besides Sparrow? Perhaps even Cove in your future. I can't use it right now because I'm on Android, but people on iOS, I think, could take advantage of Cove. Check it out. Either way, with respect to this on-chain advertising stuff, I think it's going to be another money pit for them. It will be in that negative for them. They could go through the list. Remember, they had Coinbase Pro not too long ago. They mothballed that. That was for professional traders and people that had experience in trading, like gone down in 2023. The NFT marketplace that came out, it was launched in April 2022. And the amount of NFTs and shit that was being traded on there was far less than what the alternatives were. Something called Coinbase Bundle. I really had to do some searching here. This is a beauty of a service that was launched back in September of 2018, and it allowed users to easily purchase a basket of top cryptocurrencies available on Coinbase. And you just do it with a single click. What that was gone in July 2019. So I could go on and on, but I think I made my point here. I have nothing against them trying new things. Like, what is it? Failure is an orphan, but success has many parents. And, people need to try shit, but with this monetizing on-chain stuff, I look at this as a potential new way to spam Bitcoin. I hope to God they stay away from it because we don't need it.
You got to help me understand who's asking for this. That is the big question for me. Who is saying to themselves, I need this product, and Coinbase is the company that can deliver it for me. I don't think anybody is asking for this. So why are they doing it? That's
a great question. I don't know. Somehow through their market research, they came up with this.
On-chain everything has been a flop. On-chain NFTs, done. On-chain, like you name it, it's flopped. Ordinals, NFTs, all this stuff, garbage, gone. Why would anyone want to advertise on chain? And then even worse, as you mentioned, you have to use the Coinbase wallet to see the ads, presumably.
No, I'm assuming they're going to be
you must have
that.
to. You must have to, because you certainly, Sparrow is never going to integrate a way for you to see the ads. Green Wallet and Blue Wallet are never going to integrate a way for you to see the ads. The Lightning Network is never going to integrate a way for you to see the ads. The miners are never going to integrate a way for you to see the ads. Like why? Who is asking for this, and how are they going to execute on this?
Shitcoiners.
But do they have enough? Do they have enough volume to make this a moneymaker? I can't imagine they do.
I don't know.
Shitcoiners are broke. Look at the fucking prices in the alt market. It's like it's a fucking nightmare over there. It looks like Hiroshima. Like who is going to be advertising on chain, and what are they advertising? Like, this is the other question. Why would you ever pay? Think about the way advertising works. Okay, advertising, you have to gear it toward certain people. So you use their vital information, their age, their location, their preferences, their Google searches, their Amazon history, whatever, right? You use all that and you get a targeted ad that, has a higher chance of being clicked by someone who's, 31 and likes playing basketball than it does by, some ham planet in a McDonald's parking lot waiting for her third pickup order of the day, trying to get to 8,000 calories. That's not how advertising works. Those ads, by the way, are expensive to target. So then you're going to tell me that not only are you going to have to pay for the advertising, presumably to Coinbase for use in their wallet product. Again, we're kind of speculating here, but this is the only way I can imagine this working. So you pay Coinbase to do the advertising. Then you presumably pay Coinbase for the targeted part. And then you also have to pay the on-chain fee, presumably, which is variable. So it's going to be expensive to do this and less effective. So why would anybody do this? Why would anybody advertise this way?
So after this, are you still going to hold on to your Coinbase shares?
Yeah, I'm buying more. I'm buying more. I'm buying more. I'm DCA. I'm upping the DCA. Are you kidding? This is a good revenue coming up here. I can't wait.
So I don't know who's asking you. Again, like I said earlier, there could have been some market research.
It's not even a hypothetical. Like you have to, you're hiring a position that's going to pay $250,000 a year in salary, by the way, low end. So it's got to be money. It could be some guy on the posting, right? So
it could be $250,000 rupees. So it could be
looks
far
like
less.
USD to me, buddy. Like I just saying here, 224 to 264 is the pay range. Target, you get equity, you get benefits. I don't know. Like, okay, again, what person who has an advertising budget is like, yeah, I'd rather advertise on chain than on Instagram.
Yeah, so you can do it on
no one's fucking saying
Instagram.
That.
You could do it on YouTube. No, I'm going to do it on here. Fucking
I'll take your ad money. I'll charge you half of what Coinbase does. I'll
wear
your shirt. I'll fucking read your ad. No problem.
I know we won't read the ad. I might wear a shirt. That's as far as I go. But there's definitely no ad read. But you know what? I mentioned the name Ethereum. Somebody posted it on X and I fucking laughed at this.
Oh boy.
You heard of that Mantra rug pull that happened? Have you heard about this or no? So Mantra is a shit coin and it lost within a short period of time, a couple hours, 90% of its fucking value dropped. And 90% in like just a few hours.
You know what they say about 90% drops, Len? There's always 90% more.
So it dropped that much in like that much. But either way, if you look at the 1-year chart of that Mantra coin, it's actually outperformed ETH. If you look at the ETH 1-year chart. Yes. So even though it dropped 90% in a fucking couple of hours, it's still outperformed.
Oh my God. Has anyone talked to Sean David Smith or whatever that guy's name is from Bankless? Don't tell those guys.
You know, if you're going to talk about this, you got to change your voice to that. You got the board over there.
Oh yeah. Hold on. Let me check.
Right. Thank you. We got our
Has
shtick
anyone
now.
talked to the Bankless guys about that? Ethereum's gonna flip in. It's gonna flip in. What's the other token called again?
Mantra.
It's gonna flip in Mantra before the end of the year. We're in an Ethereum bull market.
Retarded. I can't believe this. Mantra. I've never heard of it
from
either.
the
Shitcoin scene now. Like I just don't. like the once every couple of weeks bankless listen is all the exposure I get to this stuff. And if Predator posts some receipts that I think are funny, I might read through it. But
Yeah,
generally, I'm like just completely disconnected now.
Well, Trump, let's talk about him with respect to Bitcoin, because he signed some new legislation that may positively impact privacy. And so legislation that was supposed to take an effect in 2026, just next year, would enable the IRS to force cryptocurrency brokers to provide tax information on transactions conducted on their platform. And this is a holdover from the Biden administration. So with Trump trying to position himself as a Bitcoin / crypto guy, obviously he's going against this. And the purpose of the law was supposed to limit unpaid transaction by people who owe for their trade. So people that make a trade and make gains and don't report it, they wanted to limit that. So they wanted their slice of the pie. So if you just look at that, I think this could have been used in potentially far worse ways than that as well, especially if they wanted to target Bitcoiners in the future, because then they would have direct access to this information.
Yeah.
And certainly however to use that information, who knows. But it's not to say that this won't happen, but either way, at least with Trump doing this move, it's a step in the right direction for people who advocate for privacy. And this move doesn't absolve you from having to pay your taxes if you do those trades. So if you are trading Bitcoin for cash and going back and forth, remember, those are all taxable events. It's up to you if you want to pay your taxes. I would advise you do so. You don't want somebody like the IRS or CRA coming after you. It could be a heavy-handed response, but you know what? You guys are all adults. Do what you want. But I like this move by Trump. And the fact he did this, though, makes me wonder, whenever there's a world without Trump, would they reverse Trump's decision and bring this back? This is more of a privacy thing for me more than anything else. And
privacy, regulation rollback. It's all in the same vein as what you've seen from Trump a lot. And there's good and bad with Trump, like any politician. But it's good. I don't think anyone would ever characterize this as not good, would they? I mean, mixers and stuff are important. They're an important part of Bitcoin. They're an important part of anonymity and privacy. I think these are great tools. I'm glad to see this.
Well, on top of that, we'll talk about mixers in specifically here, because the Department of Justice dropped some news this past week that people who develop stuff like mixing services are not liable and won't be criminally charged. And this was a memo that came out as of April 7th. So actually it came out Monday last week, but I missed it for that show. But here we are talking about it today. And the memo stated that Trump would like to end the regulatory weaponization against digital assets. And I wonder if the DOJ stance is going to change once Trump is no longer in office. But again, I digress. We just talked about that. So with this news that came out, then Phoenix immediately pivoted and said that they are making their product available back in the United States. So you could use the Google Play Store, or I'm not sure if it's on the App Store for Apple, but
it is.
Okay, it's there. But it was never really taken away, because the APK was always available for people who want to sideload. The GitHub was always accessible, regardless of where you lived in the world.
But the coordinators for the privacy stuff weren't available, right? Like that's the big problem when you're using those tools. You need a coordinating service, right? And so if it's illegal, they just shut that part of the wallet off.
Even if you're in the States, like if you were living in other parts of the world, like I'm not
question.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe though. Yeah, Phoenix is in the App Store still. So
maybe it wasn't there. If you asked a week ago, probably wasn't there because of this move. And then Phoenix, well, you're in Canada, so then again, it doesn't really impact you.
Yeah, I don't see anything here about I don't see anything here about the mixing. So maybe it was just always there for us and they never took it out. But
yeah, so it was only for people in the States that were unfortunately impacted. But like I said, the GitHub was always available. Anybody could have used it. Plus there's VPNs and shit like that, slide loading, a lot of different options. But either way, with this latest DOJ move, we have the Samurai wallet. I wonder what's going to happen to those two dudes that were charged, that were running it. I'm guessing those charges are going to be dropped. I mean, Tornado Cash founders, they had sanctions that were dropped against them on March 21st. So they had sanctions up until March 21 and no longer sanctions against the Tornado Cash folks. So all these mixing things, it looks like people are, or at least the administration seems to be on board with this. Again, privacy, if you're going against it, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah,
it's good to have options.
Yeah, I'm completely in agreement with you. I think this is good stuff. And like I said, it's not a it's not a Trump rah moment, but this is a good move from his administration. And as I said earlier, it's in keeping with the theme that we're seeing: less red tape, less regulation. You may say that this opens up Bitcoin, crypto, whatever, to be a little too wild or a little too criminally oriented, but I disagree completely. I think we always say, what currencies does everyone use for crime, Len? It's not Bitcoin. It's the dollar. So
in cash.
Yeah,
like,
I think this is great. Exactly. This is fine. I think this is really good. And let's see. Now, the big thing is, can we take advantage of this gap in regulation and build something that's more regulatory proof? I don't know. That's something for those involved to consider, though. I would say that they're probably thinking about that quite a bit.
Well, Join Market is regulatory proof because everybody runs their own instance for that.
Yeah,
so it's hard.
yeah,
It's very decentralized. To go on a different topic, but kind of similar one, when you're dealing with cash, when you go to the bank, at least here in Canada, I don't know if it's applicable in the United States, but when you're withdrawing 10K or more, there's a lot of questions and because of KYC or anti-money laundering. That's the one, anti-money. I'm wondering, are they going to change that to be kind of in line with inflation? Because that's been a 10K for some time, right? And 10K today is not the same 10K that it was 10 years ago. Because it's now going to be easier and easier. Like, not to say that people are just withdrawing 10K and going from there, but there's going to come a point in time in the distant future that's going to be like 10K is going to be like what?
Do you think they're going to change it?
I don't think so, but
and why not? And why not?
It's obviously it's beneficial for capturing what.
But
when you're feeling
over, that's all.
But when you're pushing like a cart of groceries from Costco, and it's easily over 1,000.
Yeah.
Right now, if we 10x that,
yeah,
it seems like it's a heck of a lot. But then it's like you're just going for groceries, and
what would make this way easier?
Bitcoin,
CBDC. And that's what you're going to see. That is what you're going to see. You're going to see that as part of the regulatory framework around CBDCs. In our Discord, there was some pretty spirited discussion about CBDCs earlier in the week. I kind of caught part of it.
Are you on the fence that CBDCs are imminent, or
yeah, I think they're
on
close.
a retail side?
I mean, you think they're further than me, and actually Mark thinks they're further than me too. And you guys are really my barometer for these sorts of things. But
on retail,
I think they're close. I do think they're close. Yeah.
Yeah. For whatever reason,
and people who are like, well, it's not as bad as you might think, or CBDCs are far away, or you don't have to worry about your money being taken into CBDC. I would just point you to this story in the UK. I'm pretty sure we talked about it. This guy misgendered somebody in a classroom or something, and the UK government drained his bank account or locked access to his funds. Like, the CBDC thing is a nice tag, and it's a bit of a distraction from what's actually going on, that the majority, if not the entirety of your nest egg is digitally available to you and to the powers that be. And if you step out of line, you will have a problem. The thing is that line is getting closer and closer all the time, and it's hard to see sometimes, and the penalty is just as stiff. Mm-hmm. And so
it's an easy sell.
To people who say stuff like it's conspiratorial, I think you're wrong, honestly. And I think it's a sign that you're either too clever by a half and thinking, the tech is not going to work, or the government would never do this. Like, it's really simple, honestly, to do.
I can't see why a government wouldn't want to do it. It gives them way more control over funds. Is it one of the selling points?
Like we talked about, governments are starving for tax receipts. It's honestly a no-brainer, right? It's a complete no-brainer.
Could you imagine, the selling point? You could say, look, people out there that are engaging in the sale of drugs, guns, shit like that, you're using cash. We could eliminate that.
This is a great fucking quote from Boomer. A bank account is a 2 or 3 multi-sig between you, the bank, and the government. It's just so true. It is like, you should be like, NVK should honestly etch that into cold cards, because that is truly what you're up against when you're using digital currencies, and that includes your debit card, by the way.
Anything that is centralized, not decentralized. That's what you're dealing with, because you're dealing with one or a few entities that have the ability to control something. And with the CBDC, you're talking a node of one. It's right. Like, let's be honest. And that's what makes Bitcoin so unique and so compelling to a lot of folks, is that, you can run your own node with very little input whatsoever. And you can't say the same about a lot of other things. And like I was trying to say, it's easy to sell that to the normies out there. Like these people, they're exchanging cash, buying these illegal stuff. We could put an end to that. Furthermore, people that should be paying their taxes, they're selling stuff on Craigslist or selling stuff on whatever, and they're doing this a lot. We should be capturing those tax receipts, right? They should be paying their fair share of taxes. Yeah, I want them to pay their taxes, blah, blah, blah. And then it comes in and then,
how many times have we talked about this, Len, that there's like a growing number of have-nots who are like sort of finding themselves more and more, like they're feeling more and more hopeless. They will vote against your interests all the time. And your interests eventually are going to be, we have reason to believe people are not paying their taxes and you're missing out on services because of that. And this is why like the WEF thing and the whole like Davos crowd thing everyone talks about and carbon taxes to protect the climate, like these things are all just veiled attempts at increasing tax receipts at the end of the day. And you know that it's not going to be a huge tax, I don't think, in any of these cases, but it will be something that's going to affect the way you think about spending and affect the way you think about money and affect the way that you're able to live. And at the end of the day, that's important. And you know, CBDCs, it's not that everyone is trying to evade taxes. It's that as taxes become more domineering, people will push back and find ways around them because they're just not just. And this prevents those instances from really taking root. And I think that's what this whole thing is about. You know, it's not hard to figure that out. Now, the question for Canada on CBDCs is, you know, if they start checking Joey and Len's, you know, income and expenditures for tax receipts, well, then they have to start checking Mr. Chan and Mr. Singh as well. And they don't really want to for a number of reasons, right? So that's a problem that they're going to have to solve. But it's basically, I think, the only thing standing between, hey, you tell me, right? Everyone talks about how there's no link between CRA and mortgage verification. And presumably that's not that hard to do. The only reason they don't do it is because, I mean, either it's just corruption or they need those dollars to keep coming into housing. And so like there's really no other way to navigate that without one of those two possibilities being a reality. And so if they do go to CBDCs, you have to reconcile that difference somehow. I'm not sure how they do it, but it's just something to keep in mind. It's just something to keep in mind is all. That's all I'm saying.
And really, what can you do about it? We have to live within this environment right now. I mean, I can speak for myself. I don't want to speak for everybody out there, but I get paid every 2 weeks and it goes right to my bank account. I can't get it to me paid in cash. I have to. So I have to live within this fiat environment. Although I could pull out whatever I can and buy Bitcoin with it, but that goes to the point I'm trying to make is that's really the one way you can protect yourself from it. And when, you know, I'm preaching to the choir for the most part here, but anyone that doesn't understand with Bitcoin, there's no entity on earth. There's no one individual. There's nobody that can stop me from sending my Bitcoin to whoever I want. If I want to send you my Bitcoin, Joey, and I broadcast it, that Bitcoin, as long as it's the miner's going to pick it up next, it will go through. Nobody can stop that. That's it. It's done. And it goes through my node, and that's so beautiful. And that takes away a lot of the power of weaponization of money because now I have the power of using it. Yeah. I can't weaponize it, but it can't be weaponized.
That's right.
So it's just really a medium of exchange.
What does Lowry say? Infinitely defensible, right? The asset that's infinitely defensible.
Have you read his book?
I haven't read Software. All the stupid group chats I'm in, people either love it or hate it. It's like extremely polarizing. I did buy a book by a National Post columnist whose name I forget now called Don't Be Canada. It's a book about how we basically adopted all the worst policies all at once over the last 10 years or so. I got to read it. It's very short, but I think I'm going to enjoy it.
Get the audiobook.
Nah, I gotta read more. I have to get out of this like screen dopamine thing. I'm finding that with
the audiobook you don't need. There's no screen time. It's just whatever you're doing.
But like there's
driving
like,
a car.
Reading. Here's the thing, okay? There's good data around retention of information when you read or write compared to when you watch or listen. And reading and writing always ends up with more retention than watching and listening. You can imagine why. You know, when you're writing something out as opposed to typing it even, there's also data about that. Like typing something and writing something, just not even close in terms of data retention. And I have to get back into that habit. I'm so bad for it.
I can still recall stuff I wrote in for my notes for university.
Yeah,
I can still
when you write it down, it stays with you. Yeah.
I 100% agree. But just given time constraints, now you're a new father, right? So you can understand the value of trying to maximize your time by trying to listen to an audiobook here and there. But either way, Joey, let's transition to the rest of the news. I think it's
transitioning. We love that. Let's do it. We're going over to the notable.
Hey, before we do, don't you want to make any comment about the background, that beautiful background? I mean,
I'll take ourselves out here. Okay. Wait a minute. I won't be able to talk, but you guys can look at the background.
No, take me off. I don't go.
That's going to
Hello.
mess up the audio too, because now it's going to give me another file for this. Fuck that.
Oh,
I should have.
motherfucker.
Yeah, whatever. It's okay. Yeah, I made that in Grok. It took me a little prompting, but I'm getting better at that. Anyway, come back if you're on audio, and if you're on video, stay tuned. If you're on Twitter, YouTube, whatever, you're live with us. We're not going anywhere. You know what's next. So hang in and take care of yourselves otherwise.
And don't be a mantra cuck.
Mantra cuck. Yeah, Boomer asking about footballs. I actually have one here. I bought a GST off Amazon that I'm going to break in for the other channel and sell. I'm becoming an expert in mudding and preparing footballs, and it's been so much fun. It's so rewarding to like bring a football to a game and have people be like, oh man, that ball, what a nice color, what a nice feel. And it's never been thrown before. It's like the first time it's ever seeing any action. I'm getting very good at it, which has been a lot of fun.
What's the brand above that? Is the PST or HST?
The GST is the Wilson like standard. It's funny. This is a little off the beaten path, but for people on video, you'll know that, you know, college balls have this white stripe on them, and the CFL ball has the full stripe. And so it's, you know, for stadiums with poor lighting, years ago, Wilson patented this tech where this stripe now, how do I get this thing to focus on the stripe? I got to cover my face. This stripe now is actually made of a different leather. So it's stickier than the rest of the ball. And as someone who's, you know, throwing as a quarterback now, I will tell you that when you're pulling on the ball, on the tip of the ball, the big thing that will hurt you in a league where there's no pass protection and you have to basically get the laces right away is that these two fingers are kind of hard to place once you get the lace, but the stripe keeps you from really sliding too far. So this is really nice. Wilson patented this a long time ago. The patent has since expired, but they're innovating over there. And
how long is the patent valid for?
I think it was valid for about 7 years. So I think they did it in 2014 and finished in 21. The CFL, this is inside baseball. The CFL, I have a ball at the house here that's not widely released, but it has the stitched in stripe all the way around. And the CFL rejected using that ball a few years ago. The Toronto Argos were supposed to be the test team and rejected it and didn't like it. And I can't, if you're a quarterback, I can't imagine you don't want to at least try a ball like that. I no longer use a ball with that stripe because I just find that I like other silhouettes better. But when I was first starting out, that was really important to me.
Well, maybe it's screwing with their plans of deflating balls and shit, right?
Yeah.
Now you're introducing a new ball. You can't get access to it from behind
the other thing
scenes.
too is like, you know, you got to think about the receivers and running backs. Do the running backs want a ball that feels differently in their hand, taking a handoff? Like, how do they gauge?
Especially in different weather, hot, cold, rainy, snow. Like
for sure.
So many different variables.
It's also harder to break in a ball like this because you have to be careful on that part of the ball, right? So if you're a CFL team who's doing, you know, presumably, let's say you do 20 balls a week or something, or 10 balls a week, you got to get them right. And the thing about the leather on these balls, this is way into the weeds now, but I find that if you don't condition the white stripes, it affects the balance of the ball. The ball ends up spinning a little differently because the rest of the leather has absorbed a little bit of product and the stripes haven't. And it makes it kind of wobble in the air a little bit differently. It's harder to kind of get a good rotation rate on it. And so, you know, whatever. I still think my favorite ball, GST is a beauty ball for like $120 on Amazon. You can get it, especially one with like a blemish, a cosmetic blemish. The best ball that I think, if you're going to really try and play, probably the Wilson F2000 is the best ball, the CIS ball.
Is it the Pro V1s of these?
It's the Pro V1 of the football world. Yeah, I think so.
Everybody that's worth their weight, they're playing with that one. So
anyway, that's a little off the beaten path, but there you go.
All right, we'll start off with Joey. This might be a fucking story of the year candidate.
There's some bangers in here. Some absolute, and it's in more ways than one, by the way, the bangers. So I don't know where you want to start.
Well, this fucking story. I'm telling you, this potentially a story. I can't believe this could be topped, right? Like this is the headline was police seek man who say they violated a corpse on the R train.
How many things are going on in that headline?
Oh, there's a lot, baby. There's a lot because for the R train, for those who are wondering, that's a subway line in the city of New York, right? And so the gist of the story is some guy was taking the subway last Wednesday, and unfortunately he passed away while he died. It's unclear how he died, but the stuff that happened afterwards, Joey, it's the stuff of absolute fucking legend.
I just have to fucking stuff in nightmares.
No, okay. It could be that too. So the deceased, he boarded the train around 8 p.m. local time, and he must have died shortly thereafterwards because it appeared somebody else boarded the train and started rummaging through his body around 11 p.m. Right, like the guy died, right? Because everybody knows only the fucking rich people take the R train at weekday nights, and right, like
In
it's full
such
of rich
poor
guys.
health, in such poor health that they may die while on the train. That's the guy whose wallet you want to go for.
The guy, like, not only was this guy, did they fucking rob him, right? This guy, but I can't believe this because the rush of blood of robbing him, it must have went to other parts of his body.
Damn.
Because what transpired after, he started to fucking have sex with the dead guy. So first he robbed him of his valuables, right? And then he robbed him of laying claim that his anus is only a one-way street, exit only. So he went through this, and he was captured on surveillance, right? And they say that if you can find a guy, he's a guy with a goatee, black backpack, wearing a yellow hooded shirt, LA Dodgers baseball cap, and presumably he has a smile on his face walking out. But then after leaving and doing his business, the fucking corpse was robbed a second time.
The fucking corpse or the fucked corpse?
The fucked corpse was robbed.
Oh, God. Okay.
So,
all right.
By this time, there's nothing else. His dignity was gone. Everything was gone from this. I don't know what the fuck. This is what we're coming to, where some fucking guy unfortunately dies in the train, gets robbed, gets fucked, and then gets robbed again. This is when we come. This story of the fucking year, man.
This is like peak. This is peak New York, right?
No, not Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts. Where is he now? Is he in Boston?
He was in Boston, but they traded
him. He's LA.
Yeah.
Nah, Mookie wouldn't do that.
Listen, so the thing here, New York, always in the news, okay, for its attention to illegal immigrants. It's
Eric Adams has been.
He's converted now because he's tired of the shit. Yeah. And they tried to like extort the guy basically for taking a flight or something, but that's neither here nor there. We probably talked about it in the past. Honestly, the stuff we've covered on this show, I'm sure we've talked about our buddy Eric. Open invite, Eric, by the way. You can come on CBP anytime you want.
Election night, bring him on.
Yeah, we'll add him to the panel. So they're worried about all this stuff. And this is the kind of story that when people say New York is crumbling, they're pointing to stuff like this. A corpse is on a train, okay? There should never be a way that a corpse makes it through like a circuit of the metro. Like there should be somebody from the Metro Police walking the train every loop, every hour, every whatever on some interval to make sure that number one, there's no like bodily fluids anywhere or like dirty conditions. And, you know, presumably number two, Len, make sure there's no deceased people. People die all the time. You know, it's a subway. There's thousands of people, tens of thousands of people riding these trains every day. And someone might die on one of the trains. You know, it's just a numbers game. So there's no one doing that in this case for long enough that a guy who decides he needs to rob this poor guy corpse, robs and fucks the body.
Like what goes your mind?
No one sees the
body's kind of warm.
Okay, and like by the way, someone must have seen the guy with his dick out because like they know what the guy looked like.
Surveillance cameras caught him.
But did the cameras see the corpse? Like this is what I'm talking about. Like there's some disconnect here between like what they care about, what they don't care about. And then even though they have the cameras with the corpse and the guy fucking the corpse, they don't see either one. And then a second guy comes around and robs the deflowered corpse. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
That's story of the year, man.
Yeah.
Like
remember that show Freaky Stories? It happened to a friend of a friend of mine. Like that's the kind of people you would that seems like this kind of story. Like I feel like I should be hearing this from two cartoon bugs, you know? Like it's so unbelievably disgusting and vulgar and just like decline of civilization type stuff.
If you had to pick a place before I said where it took place, if you had to say
I would have said New York.
It would be one of two places for me: Chicago or New York.
Yeah,
that's really.
We talk about. And by the way, like when Len gets the stories, I doubt very much he's typing in Grok. Like, give me the 5 most ridiculous stories from New York last week. It's just, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. It's a never-ending party over there in Chicago and New York.
Or it's also people send them to me as well. So I also.
I see them sometimes in the Discord there. But yeah, it's listen. That's the kind of. welcome to the big city, kid. You know, it ain't Sex in the City, New York anymore. I'll tell you that. I don't think Carrie and the girls would be able to cope with what we're seeing in New York on a daily basis.
Imagine riding the subway after hearing that story.
Why would you
I'd be
ever even
fucking
go
scared.
into a subway station? Like, why?
Well-
like, I am increasingly, by the way, my hottest, latest take, I am increasingly against any kind of public transit. Like, it feels to
It's a
me-
different world over there.
Yeah.
You
it
can't
just
drive a
feels-
car.
It feels to me like I don't, you know what? I'm not even gonna say it because it's just so harsh, but it's just dumb. All these things could be solved by just, you know, forcing social economic districts or something. Like, I hate to say it, but you're never going to see this in certain places. And the only reason you see it on the subway is because you got people who like,
oh, it's $3 a ride.
In
this case, you got
is the guy
a free
who's
ride.
is the guy who's robbing and fucking the corpse like such a high quality economic unit that we have to give that guy transportation on the cheap? Or should he be like stuck in the neighborhood that he's in with other people of his socioeconomic level? Like, it's hard for me to
Have
make
you
the
ridden
case
the
for
Go?
the former, but it's easy for me to see the case for the latter.
Have you ridden the Go? You must have.
Oh yeah, I ride the Go once in a while,
We've
sure.
ridden it together. Right? So on there, it's a different way of traveling because it's more expensive, right?
Yeah.
So it's attracting a different clientele. So in terms of like the experience, right? So that is public transportation, but it is a higher cost public transportation, and as such, the experience is far greater.
Man,
than
I
it is
joked on
in
the show before. Like, all these
CDC.
places, all these services need either higher fees or a dress code. And you could solve a lot of problems like that, honestly. I hate to say it, but that's really what it boils down to. And the more, like, show me a city that doesn't have a very intricate transit network that also has some crazy crime problems. Like, I really do think there's a correlation there. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do think there's a
Pyongyang.
correlation there. Yeah, what about them?
They got a metro over there.
Yeah.
They have crime. I think is limited because who the heck could do crime? You're just going to get sent to the gulag. You had three generations.
By the time you're finished, you know, pulling your dick out to fuck the corpse, the police are on top of you. You know, like that. But in America, they don't have that. Anyway, whatever. This is an insane story, and I've obviously said some things that are kind of hard to agree with. But I honestly, the older I get, and now having a kid, the less patience I have for the bottom quintile. And
you know
I
what
just
it
see
is?
this all the time now. It's just more and more and more. And it's just like that chunk of the pie is like growing almost, it feels like.
No, it's accelerated the fact what was important to you before is no longer important to you now. And what is important to you now was not important to you before.
Maybe.
And it's just accelerating the fact of that. Like, it's just because you are changing as a person, as a human being, as an individual.
Yeah,
so,
maybe.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the tariffs Trump did and what transpired this past? Because it was nuts that what happened with the Dow Jones, what happened with the markets as a whole, fucking bonds, like he's losing control. It looks like.
I thought that the All In podcast was pretty good, good barometer for the sort of political elite left versus the Trump/mega right, the right being represented on that show by Chamath and Sachs, and the left being represented by Larry Summers and Ezra Klein. Summers was Treasury Secretary, and Ezra Klein is like, you know, famous sort of media voice on the left, intolerable to listen to, but does add value to the conversation, I think. I don't know what the goal of the tariffs are, but I know two things, okay? And again, like there's people out there who will say, he's losing control, like you said, bond market this, stock market that, blah, blah, blah. He's never, you know, he's not going to bring manufacturing back. It's, you know, no one knows what his goals are. When you're in a situation like this, again, this is my view, okay? I could be wrong, but I really think these are like sort of table stakes for something like this. The situation is fluid. So yes, you never know what's going to come in terms of responses, demands, blah, blah, blah. And announcing the target destroys your leverage in the negotiation. So you're also not going to know exactly what the end goal is. Some people say it's manufacturing. Some people say it's China. Some people say it's getting rates down. I think all those things are nice to haves along the way to a bigger goal or a smaller goal. I don't know. But the idea that like he's losing control, I'm not sure I believe that. The stock market's still trading at 30 times PE, forward PE. The Dow Jones, you know, Yeah, it had a tough day, but what is it over the last 3 years? The S&P had a tough day. What is it over the last 3 years? Gold, has a tough day, drops under 3,200. What is it in the last 3 years? There's a feeling of entitlement from the investor class, and I think also suddenly from Main Street, who now, after decades of Bernie Sanders style, burn the Wall Street tycoons, is suddenly concerned about the value of the S&P. Like, fuck off, okay? There's no proof that this is a lost cause, that they're on the right track, that they're off the track. No one knows. And people pretending to know just are annoying at this point, He's doing stuff that's within his power as a president. They're doing stuff that's different because the other point I don't think you can really argue against is the stuff that they were doing in the past is no longer working. So it's really not, it's not like a difficult thing to get your head around, and pretending that you understand that it's off the rails, pretending that you don't understand what's happening. Like, just watch and see, no one can predict the future. No one knows what's going on in that war room, but to say guys like Besant and Lutnick and, some of the other guys in the room there are incompetent or don't have a handle on this. If they don't have a handle on it, then who has a handle on it? What is the more competent person you could put in there from the commentator class who thinks they have a handle on it? There isn't one. So, I'm just watching and waiting. Let's see how all this stuff turns out.
Isn't it like, for people that are heavily tied to the markets as a whole, isn't it kind of scary for them to see this wild ride?
Well, here's the thing, right? Okay, I agree with this, but who are these people heavily tied to the markets?
I would imagine the people that are older,
yes,
that have exposures to, say, bonds, have exposure to, say, the NASDAQ or shit like that, right? And those are the ones that we're looking at it like, and I mentioned it in the Bitcoin side of the show, and I asked you, how worried were you? Like, you're like, whatever, you didn't really bat an eye. And I'm the same way, because we are not only a different point in our life, but our exposure to Bitcoin gives us a different perspective on things. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the only thing that really matters to me right now is as long as I have more Bitcoin tomorrow than I do today. But a lot of these folks out there that have the exposure to the markets like that, they don't have that. I'm not trying to justify that they should be that they should be doing this. But what I'm trying to say is they're kind of upset. They're worried. But I think with all this to be said, the problem that really exists, I don't know if it could ever be tackled, and that is the trade imbalance, the money of that can, because this whole tariff idea should have at least fixed that a little bit, right? I mean, will it?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
And that's a problem. How do you know the problem is the trade imbalance?
As long as there's a significantly more money going out than coming in, that works well.
No. How do you know the problem they're trying to solve is the trade imbalance?
I'm assuming tariffs is probably trying to solve that, as long as a few other things as well, right? And that's what, like, I'm not trying to say that this is the problem, but this is a huge problem that exists, and I don't know if it could ever be fixed.
Yeah, I don't know.
And as long as you have
no idea.
As long as you have this situation, and it's okay if you have this situation for a day, a month, a year, or so forth, but when you have it for decades, mm-hmm. and it's going to be like this for decades moving forward, you're just sending money to another country. We watched China in the past 20-something years build tens of thousands of kilometers of subways. We barely build one stop over here. They have brand new airports. We have crumbling airports. High-speed trains. Where are our high-speed trains? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, there's stuff that was built off money that was generated here. When I say here in North America, Canada, United States, and has gone there to spend and build up infrastructure over there. I wish it was saved and spent over here, because that's all part of it. The imbalance. You're buying goods from there, and then they sell it back.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're buying goods from there, and then you're sending them money, and they send us just processed goods. Is bullshit. I don't know how to fix that.
I don't know either. There's an article today I'm trying to find that I can't right now, but I think it was the FT. The FT had two articles over the last week or so. One framed for Americans and one framed for Europeans. And it's interesting, like, in terms of like the media representation of this stuff. Again, I'm sort of coming to the conclusion that the media is just stupid and wants clicks, and most people that read the press are generally like kind of dumb. The media frames this for America as, now America is not going to have any Chinese goods to buy, and they're going to have they're not going to have all those options, and that's bad for the American consumer. And then on the European side, it says why the American tariffs will mean that Europe is going to be flooded with Chinese goods, and why that may be a problem. It's all just conjecture, framing, nonsense.
What's happened to U.S. dollar in the past week or change? I don't know. I can't believe this is the
down.
case.
It's down. So like
Canadian dollar hit 72 cents.
It's weakening. It's a weakening U.S. dollar right now.
Euro,
which is another
Euro
thing
hit
that's on their
113?
alleged list of goals. I really have no idea, but
it might be, and they're accomplishing it. But now, like, fuck Canada, 72 cents. This is going to help out guys like Mark Carney who are in power. They can say, look what we've done. We've strengthened the Canadian dollar.
Really, it's actually just the Americans. Like the Americans control the currency market. Like it's obvious, right? So
and the euro,
every Canadian dollar strength story is actually just a U.S. dollar weakness story because every country's experiencing something similar.
And then the 10 years, it went fucking bonkers.
Yeah, but it's under control now.
Oh, for a couple of days it was, and then that's a sign. That's why I'm wondering, like, what the hell's going on?
I don't know.
And for me, I don't even know what the hell's going on. That's why I buy Bitcoin. It's for dumb people like me because it's easier for me just to exchange my Canadian dollars for Bitcoin and just hold the keys, and I'm good. I don't have to put much thought into it. Very little input, and I get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's the asset that matters, I think, in all this. I mean, imagine what the Bitcoin price would have been with all this happening 5 years ago. You would have seen a 50% drop minimum, uncertainty, whatever, right? It would have been significant. Here, we're already off quite a bit, I will admit, but it's not really getting hammered the way you would expect it, or you would have expected it 2 years ago, which is nice.
Joey, I want to just talk about, and I did some research this past week, and I was shocked at something. What's a metric that we use in Canada that we talk about in the show that defines or helps define a country that is doing well? Like we talk about a metric,
GDP per capita, probably, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And or gross fixed capital formation maybe would be another one. Or
so I'm going to focus on the GDP per capita because per person it's a very good metric. But did you know that in the past 10 years, since the Liberals have been in power, the GDP per capita, it's been nothing spectacular, right?
Yeah.
The previous administration, take a look at the GDP per capita from when Harper became prime minister to when he stopped becoming prime minister, from 2006 to 2015. Take a look at that gain and compare that same gain from 2015 from the Liberals started to now.
Yeah.
Very flat, isn't it? They're very similar.
Okay, here's the thing though. The Harper years match the US for the same time period.
Correct.
And then in 2015 they decoupled. That's the big problem.
Correct.
Not that they're low nominally, that comparatively they are falling off a cliff. That's
comparatively,
the issue.
But in terms of the growth, it's been like just pretty much the same. I'm just looking at that. Where the growth kind of stopped, if you go back further, GDP per capita, is when Paul Martin stopped becoming prime minister. That's when things started to flatten out. So the narrative of like the GDP per capita growing significantly under the previous regime, it's not the case.
Yeah, it didn't.
Maybe comparatively to the United States.
Rich Diaz made a great point about this on Loonie Hour, that, because they had, who'd they have on there? John Manley and somebody else, I forget.
Former finance.
John Manley, former deputy prime minister, and I gotta look it up here. Give me a second.
He was the finance minister too, wasn't he? Am I wrong?
I forget. John Manley and
I thought he was a prime minister.
David Hurley.
Yeah, after Martin, he was a finance minister.
So they had them on the show, and those two geezers tried to make the case. Not that you just tried to make it, but basically that if you look at the Stephen Harper years, things were not great those years either. And Rich correctly points out, which by the way, we've pointed out on this show too, over the last year, that the problem with GDP per capita is not that it's flat for 20 years. It's that it was lockstep with the US that was also having trouble for a decade and a half, and then, or, a little bit more than a decade, I guess, and then dropped off in 2015 when Trudeau took over, the Liberals took over, and hasn't recovered, and has since continued to fall against other countries that are in the OECD, for example, or in the G20, for example, or whatever, right? Other petrodollar countries, you name it. Whatever your metric is, comparatively, we are having a much harder time than we were before 2015. That's the big deal. And so, I think there's a group of people, Manly among them, who obviously knows better and just assumes that the Loonie Hour guys weren't prepared. Tries to make this case that things were not great. Like, again, always the attempts from these people to point to data in a vacuum and say that this is the only thing that matters and ignore obvious comparisons, obvious relativity, obvious blah, blah, blah. It's embarrassing. And it shows. And I messaged Keith and Rich and Steve. I said, hey, you know what? That was a great show. Those guys were dismissive of you three. They were unprepared for the interview. They were poo-pooing you and talking down to you when you came with what I thought was really good data and level-headed arguments. And if they were on our show, Len, I would have lost my fucking mind. You should listen to it. The interview starts at about 31 minutes, and it gets heated almost right away. And it doesn't slow down. It's a really, really good 40 minutes or so with those two guys. And it just shows you, like, it's a great example of the difference between what the political elite think is reality and what the reality is in the data. This is the problem that Canada is having. There's a vibes economy and then a real economy. And more people are moving from the vibes economy to the real economy and seeing that things are not all they're cut out to be. I don't think those are not debatable points, I don't think, anymore.
I think that just want to point out that things weren't all that great under the Harper regime as well. It's all I was trying to.
They weren't. Nothing, like, I'm not
right now, but there's this narrative, right? And there's this the almost romantic notion of the way things used to be.
They weren't great, but like the question is, were they better, right?
Comparatively, yes, because the GDP per capita was slightly better, but I used the word slightly in there, right? And where it really stopped, like where the drop off started and it flatlined for a couple of decades almost, is after Martin left.
This is why I said start thinking about GFI too, and start thinking about foreign investment. Those are the other two metrics that I look at, that Rich mentions on the show. And these are, you can find these anywhere. World Bank has this data, Wikipedia has this data, like it's all over the place. It's not like Bloomberg terminal level stuff. It's easy to read, and it's an indicator of a country's economic strength and health. And in all three cases, we are like lower and lower and lower every year, which is just like, it's obvious as to why. So,
but the low hanging fruit on this one is like the Canadian dollar strengthening in the past little while, past week. Yeah. And that's it's a very strong political tool that could be used in a campaign. And I'm wondering how Carney and Crew could use this.
It's funny, we both agree it's a strong political tool, but we also both agree that it's a lie to say that it's a Canadian story.
Yes, 100%. And
that's
even
like the population is just so dumb that it's going to be used like that.
Well, to go a little bit further, earlier this month we had the carbon tax removed from gasoline.
And by the way, okay, like the Canadian population is so fucking stupid that they will tell you at dinner tables and parties that Trump is destroying his currency, destroying his economy, blah, blah, blah. But then when you tell them that the Canadian dollar strength is actually just an American story, they say, no, it's a Carney story. It's a Carney doing the right thing. Like retarded, zero IQ.
It sounds like you have firsthand
stuff.
Experience with this.
I don't. Thankfully, like the people I talk to are not that dumb, but there are people who are that dumb out there for 100%. I'm lucky that my mother-in-law was a banker. My father-in-law, understands stuff like this. My mother and father, my friends, but that's not everyone's situation. And certainly then in the professional sphere, there's going to be more conversations that are like that than like the one we just had about the DXY and US dollar weakness as opposed to Canadian dollar strength. Because that's a hard conversation to have in 30 seconds. The TikTok enjoyers won't get that, right?
And that's a real problem. And another thing about
simply
TikTok,
Bitcoin can tell us how it's a Canadian dollar story. I'm sure they got 30 seconds to fucking do a story on that.
And see
this $1 trillion giant is down to 72. Like, oh fuck.
And you got to put the thumbdell, like the guy.
Someone's got to be on fire in the picture. I mean, today
holding the Singapore dollar.
Yeah. Whatever.
If I find somebody with a picture like that, I'm clicking that. So if anybody just out there, if somebody's
I will click your videos.
If it's a Singapore dollar, it's a given. But the TikTok thing, almost immediately, there's been a bunch of videos that are going on TikTok talking about how the expensive goods, the luxury goods, are made in China, and Have you seen this? Have you heard about this, Joey?
I've seen some of the videos.
It's funny. Like,
Yeah,
and
they
who's
are
controlling this? Who's controlling the knob over there for the narrative that's coming to TikTok? Is the CCP.
Yeah. Are
Right?
you
Like,
familiar at all with the way these things are manufactured? I remember when I was working at a pawn shop, we used to get guys coming in and selling us what they would call dark factory products.
Wait.
Yeah.
But I can't believe people are even naive enough to think that this shit was never made over there.
Oh, Len,
Like,
we just talked about the Canadian electorate. What do you think? Come on.
Yeah. Like, everything is fucking made
dark factory,
Bangladesh, Singapore, China.
Dark factory products used to be like, we would get Beats Studio over ear earphones all the time, and we never sold them because we tried not to sell counterfeit stuff, but there was a case to be made that these headphones were better than the Beats that Future Shop at the time was selling, because they just didn't care that much about like packaging and the box. The box was a little bit blurry and the centering on the labeling was off. And they called it dark factories because they apparently did this when the factory was on quote unquote downtime and just shipped, a lower quality product with the same, electronics otherwise, that can't be sold in the department store, but could certainly be sold off the back of a truck or certainly be sold. And when we pulled those headphones apart, like, we couldn't find any differences in the tech. So, for people who don't realize this yet, I mean, certainly you've like gone on DHgate or AliExpress in the last 10 years and seen like knockoff Nikes, knockoff sports jerseys. I don't know what else. There's knockoff everything. It's knockoff sunglasses, you name it. Like, it's nothing there is real. And it's all manufactured overseas. What did you think? It was like a special factory where they're manufacturing your bag, but not the knockoff bag that looks exactly the same. Come on, you can't be that dumb.
100%.
Or maybe they are that dumb, right? Maybe they are that dumb.
No, certainly. But where did this shit come from? Like, it always comes from some other place. We don't have manufacturing here, right? We're so service based. And what's the longevity for that? There's,
who knows?
It's going to have to collapse. You can't strictly rely on services forever. Eventually, something has to give. So we're buying shit that's just been coming from a factory. It's been repackaged. One gets the Pro V1, one gets the Kirkland, and it's pretty much the same ball. No, not entirely, but there's some truth to that. Like, the Kirkland balls are very good, and you get them for a fraction of the cost. But really, like, why pay for the brand name? There's a saying, loyalty to the brand name just bankrupts the customer, or something like that. Because if you're just loyal to one particular brand, right? Fuck it. Learn to shop, learn to find deals, learn to get something else.
Totally.
And
learn to open up a factory in Shenzhen, make your own stuff. Easy.
Vietnam, I like.
Oh, nice. You've been looking?
Yeah.
Factory space? How many square feet? 20,000 square feet? What are we making, you think?
Toilet paper.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's made domestically. You can't fight that.
Yeah.
We'll make dollar bills.
Why don't we make knockoff block clocks?
No. The quality in that it's hard to fucking.
It is elite.
I'll be honest, I knocked it off the shelf a couple of times. And it's kind of protected. Like, there's a pillow down there because I just have it just in case. Yeah, because in case but it's still like, it hit the pillow and it like survived, like, like it's quality. But either way,
totally.
There's this video that somebody posted on X, and it's only a 24-second video, but it's showing in Vancouver minimum wage job fair.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pretty much hundreds of people, maybe thousands lined up. The job market is
Canadian
tough.
dollars up though, Len. 72 cents. Canada strong, elbows up.
In hockey, that's typically, it's frowned upon. Not typically, it is, right? You're going to the box or worse if you have your elbows up in hockey, right? Like, anyways, play clean. Minimum wage jobs, the competition's got to be through the absolute roof. And remember, just 4 short years ago, a little bit less than 4 short years ago, there was a shortage in so many fields out there. We couldn't hire enough people. And now a lot has changed in a very short period of time. And if you saw, like, just look at how things have gotten rotten in that short period of time, it could get even more rotten in the same amount of period of time moving forward. So it could get a heck of a lot worse.
There was a by-election in Vancouver, by the way, last week. Did you see that?
For provincial, right?
For municipal.
Somebody quit their job?
I think so. And Mayor Ken Sim had a preferred candidate, friend of the show, Kenny, and I think his preferred candidate lost. The guy who won is a declared communist. So interesting stuff going on in Vancouver. I feel for Mayor Sim. I hope he can rally the troops before the election cycle starts for the city proper. I can't imagine that's going to make things better, but it's something to keep an eye on, I guess.
Is the background of this person that won, is this somebody that has lineage to the Far East?
No,
maybe.
I don't think
I'm
so.
wondering.
I don't think so. Hey, you know what though? I'm not sure. I don't remember the name, so it could be. I don't want to.
Okay,
I don't
I'm
want to
just
say one way or the other.
curious. Yeah, but that job fair video just goes to show you how bullshit things are going on over there. But that's like one just snippet of how things are going. I did a quick search on food banks this week, and I got a story from the Community Care Food Bank in St. Catharines in Thorold. And yeah, so this year, the first quarter, the demand is up 12% for the first quarter of 2025, 12%. And they say, this is interesting. Food bank demand went down only once between 2017 and 2024. Right. Only one instance did the food bank demand go down. That was during exactly that, when people were receiving $2,000 CERB checks each month. Other than that, the demand for the food bank continually goes up, and 12% over one quarter. That is a lot.
That is a lot.
And they're saying they're bracing for impacts due to U.S. tariffs. I'm wondering how that's going to impact the food bank. But if food gets more expensive, and as people have less money to spend on food and donate food to the food bank,
it's going to be bad. The dollar thing, people are not, they don't understand that. And like, not to make this a political topic, food banks are a terrible thing that people have to use. But if it doesn't matter who wins the election, okay? If we don't, as a country, focus on resource extraction, the loonie's in trouble. And if the loonie goes down, your life is going to get harder. No matter if you got Bitcoin or don't have Bitcoin, no matter if you got real estate or don't have real estate, your life is going to get harder if the loonie goes down to 50 cents. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that, honestly. The feeling of that, how that, especially the older crowd, the 55 and up, who've basically been immune to any of this, right? They have a house, they don't have a mortgage, they are going on trips twice a year or whatever. Like they've been insulated pretty more or less the entire time, right? Since this like 2008 crisis and following. So that's going to hurt a lot of people, the fixed income crowd. And we've talked on the show about how stuff like ODSP doesn't cover nearly the amount of money you need to live a decent life in Ontario or probably other provinces as well, in their kin programs. How's it going to look if the dollar goes down another 30%, right? It's not going to, you don't know real pain. As like I said on the show before, a trade war with the United States is not buying Canadian ketchup, okay, and putting clever quotes under Wayne Gretzky wines. It's not being able to eat the same number of calories you do right now.
We vilified Gretzky.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. We did. Like they're putting like stupid quotes underneath his wines now, like tastes like traitor or whatever, right? Like the notes of traitor, notes of groveling, whatever they put there instead of like
Are we now celebrating that Ovechkin, the Russian,
did you see the CBC
versus
coverage of this?
Gretzky, the Canadian?
Did you see the CBC coverage of this?
No.
CBC made it political. You should go check it out. It's like Russia, blah blah blah. It's just so lowbrow, man.
So wait. For that moment, Gretzky was okay.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Right? Like what the fuck?
Because he got passed. Can we talk a bit about just the debates? Because we are not going to see people before the debates happen this Wednesday and Thursday. The topics for the debates were announced, Len. I'm going to pull it up here just because I want to get this right. But I found this before the show and didn't tell you about it, though I should have. Let me pull it up. I'll put a link to the tweet in the chat, too, for people. Because you should look at this and you should ask yourself why this is. In the two debates. So the debates are run by elections. This is like an elections group that was started by the Liberals in 2018 and decides on topics and dates and all these things and leadership and formatting. Famously, there was like a complete botch job during the 2018 debates where there were 5 moderators, including, by the way, Evan Solomon, who was a moderator at that time for the debates. So just, continued incest between CBC, the Liberal Party, and the candidates. I'm going to pull this up and we'll have a quick look here together. Here are the debate topics for the. I don't want to boost it. For the
Boost it.
No, for the French debate, it's cost.
You got to
of living.
zoom in, Joey. It's going to be hard for people to see.
Can you?
On the
Okay, I'll
phone.
zoom in. I can't.
Or
zoom
just
in.
right click and save it or something. Or
I'll read it out. Okay. The French language debate is covering cost of living, energy and climate, the trade war, identity and sovereignty, and immigration and foreign affairs. I would argue that every single one of those things is a top 5 issue for the broader electorate. Every single one of them. Only in the French debate. Meanwhile, in the English debate, you get cost of living, energy and climate, leading in a crisis. Interesting. Public safety and security. Interesting. And tariffs and threats to Canada. That's the English language debate. Now, you tell me which one of those is going to be easier on Mark Carney and by how much of a delta it's going to be easier.
His command of the French language is going to make it even worse too.
The English debate is going to be so much easier for.
No,
Carney
I'm trying to say not only is he going to struggle with the topics, but his command of the French language is going to make it double hard on him.
And you know what the best part is? Nobody's going to be watching.
Yeah.
No one's going to be watching. And the CBC, like I said, my mother-in-law's here now, and I was saying to her before dinner that because she was asking me about the election, and I said I don't really know who's going to win, but I see a lot of things that make me think there's a lot of work going into making Carney look good leading up to this election. The polling, oversampling, the NDP candidate turned pollster who's asking door knockers to collect data instead of actually getting answers from people on the phone. The debate schedule and debate topics, the language split, like you name it. And I'll give you an example of how it's being slanted toward the guy running for the Liberals. And I'm not saying it's on purpose, but the more it happens, the more you have to assume that there's some intention behind it. And it's hard for me to look at that debate schedule and say, yeah, this is fair. It's not fair. It's very clearly not fair. And it's frustrating as a Canadian. You're paying for that. You know, it's the election commission is paid for by you and me to the tune of millions of dollars every year. By the sounds of it, they collect a lot of money. And, by the way, I should mention too, that part of the effort when it comes to data collection, political parties have access to like your charitable donations, your interests in terms of like just kind of data floating out there around about you. So when they call you, they're not calling you necessarily because of your postal code or your gender or your age. They may be calling you based on what's called a persuasion profile that they've built around you.
Where did they get this information from?
I just heard this on Michael Geist's podcast today. And so there's someone on there talking about the data that's collected by political parties and how it's rather unsavory and unethical. And so when they call people to get these numbers for the polls, it's not just because of your postal code's, L8R or whatever your postal code is. It's because they think they can get an answer out of you that is a certain answer that will reflect well for the candidate that they prefer. I am 100% certain of this. And the idea that this goes on and no one knows about it and you pay for it, because as you mentioned before, Len, what does official party status get you? It gets you a lot of little perks, right? Among them, probably something to do with money for polling, right? You get some amount of money. And
you got more staff.
Yeah, whatever, right?
So that staff could be deployed in many different ways.
All this stuff is flywheeling toward an outcome that makes me think there is a real effort to make Carney look good. And I don't know if it's happening or not, but it's worth thinking about at least when you look at the polls, look at the data, and then look at stuff like campaign turnouts.
Did you see that there's the CBC article talking about the campaign turnouts? Did you see this article?
What's it say?
It was saying that the number of people that are advertised that are both attending the Liberals and the Conservatives are false. They're falsely increased. And in fact, they went to...
What are they using, cell phone data?
They go as far as to getting this CBC does this, right? They fucking hand counted the heads.
Amazing. Cut the funding to that fucking place. Just cut the fucking funding already. Like it's just every fucking day it's something else.
So one that they're saying that it was attended in Edmonton, 15,000 people. They showed the picture of the 15,000 people. They drew dots on the heads and they said, here's a comparison of a Winnipeg Jets game which has 15,000 people. And they're trying to say it's great stuff. But
I don't know. This is all interesting. Well, listen, I'll see you on Wednesday with Heather. We'll be back. I'm going to watch the French language debate and see how I feel about it. And I recommend that other people do the same. Tell your friends there's translation available online. You can go to YouTube and get the English feed from the French debate.
They always translated it.
But no one knows that. That's the thing. No one knows. Like, you ask people if they're watching the French language debate, why? I don't speak French. Like, no, because the topics are different and it's translated. You should be watching both. And I'll be watching that. Thursday, I'll be watching the English language debate. And then Monday, Len, we will talk about what happened. And until then, I guess.
No, 2 Mondays from now is the actual election date.
We'll be talking about the debates.
Yeah, because 2 weeks from now is the big day, April 28th.
Yeah.
And I believe on top of that, this Friday, I could be wrong, but I believe that advanced polling starts this Friday.
Maybe.
So you could go out and cast your ballot. I'm voting for Bitcoin. I don't know about you.
Write it in. I'm writing my own name in.
Go Bitcoin.
That's it. Anyway, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you later.